Welcome to Digital Asset News. Take the top stories in cryptocurrency and digital assets and break them down into bite-sized pieces. Today we have some thought-provoking articles. First up, 3 reasons why Bitcoin price is bullish right now, and 1.4 million XRP was stolen via fake Chrome extension, so just another way that scammers are ripping all of us off. And finally, the Federal Reserve prepares to print 50 Bitcoin networks worth of USD. Not 50 Bitcoins, 50 Bitcoin networks. Unbelievable. And finally, we'll go over the scam of the day. We'll do that in the second video, but let's jump into today's stories. So first up, the markets still up, most are in green, some are in red. Bitcoin is up by 1%, looking at 6,600. Ethereum XRP up a little bit, so that's fantastic, and things are going along swimmingly, even though we have this awful coronavirus going on in the background. Taking a look at the stock or the traditional markets, looks like the S&P 500 over 1 month just took a huge nosedive, but as of today, it's gone up from 2304 to 2447. And this is all because the Fed is just printing money nilly-willy, and who really cares? Sky is falling, everything's on fire, let's just print money to nobody's end, no big deal. And looks like the market has responded. Now gold actually has gone down a little bit today. It's down 2%, 30 days over 0.81, 6 months, and so on and so forth. I gotta tell you though, Peter Schiff, who's a big gold bug, he always touts about how everything is going to dissolve and the world is going to end. He's been doing this for like the last 8 years. And I gotta tell you, if I invested in gold 5 years ago, and I was up 37%. I mean, traditionally I'd be pretty happy, but can you imagine if you put that same amount of money into Bitcoin, where you'd be at today? Unbelievable. So I just don't understand all those types of talkings about Peter Schiff. I know where my money's going, and maybe you're with me. Who knows? But cryptocurrency digital assets seems to be the choice for me and potentially you. So let's jump into today's top stories. So first up, the 3 reasons why Bitcoin price is bullish right now. And I didn't really get into this article too much until I started to, put some more context behind it. So first up, they say there's 3 reasons, and I agree with all 3, although in different circumstances. So first up, the House Democrats proposed 2 bills that resolve around the creation of a digital dollar and digital wallet so that the Federal Reserve could transfer digital cash directly to individuals and businesses. This was reported yesterday, and honestly, I didn't really get it. I didn't really see like what the big deal was. So the Fed is going to go, do a digital dollar, and they're going to give it out to people. That was just one of those things that was thrown out for this stimulus package, because if you're not from the U.S., we're going to face huge financial crisis, as is the rest of the world, and those different areas are doing whatever they're doing to combat that. But what we plan to do was just have the Fed print money like crazy, and for all those people that couldn't get to work, we were going to essentially just give them a bailout, which is what we should do, because we've been giving bailouts to corporations forever, and we never really help the common person. So this is the time that we really need to step up and do those things, and I'm glad that this $2 trillion package got approved. However, in one of those languages, in one of the initial drafts, they had talked about some type of digital dollar. So the draft bills are called Take Responsibility for Workers and Families Act and the Financial Protection and Assistance and blah, 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 whatever. So according to authors of the legislation, the Fed would use a digital USD and digital wallets to transfer money to qualified individuals, which amount to $1,000 for minors, $2,000 for adults. So that's great for in the US, right? There's certain limitations. If you make around 75,000 and below, you're going to hit that. For the full amount, 99,000 below is a partial amount. If you're outside the United States, you're like, who cares? And you would be right. Who cares if you're outside the United States? It doesn't apply to you. But both draft documents use the same definition for the digital dollar. And before I go on, let me just say this. Those were just drafts. You have to understand, Republicans and Democrats, if you're not from the U.S., those are the 2 main parties. This is not like other parts. Like in South America, they have numerous different parties, and Europe as well. But here we've got 2, and they duke it out. So on each one of these drafts, they pretty much just whittle away at what they want, what they don't want, and they come to a compromise. So for this one that was approved, the full text of the bill is not yet known. Lawmakers indicated Tuesday that it would include the initial GOP proposal for direct cash payments to Americans. Great. So how are they going to get that cash to Americans is the big question. I was around back when President George Bush, W. Bush, sent out stimulus checks to everybody. I think it was between like $300 and $500, and that was huge. And we just got that in the mail. It took like 2 or 3 weeks, and everybody was ecstatic. So now that we're going through this coronavirus, the problem is that the first of the month is coming up, and that's when everything is due. So what they're thinking is that this may not be fast enough, so maybe they could start to do a digital dollar. However, can you imagine the headache that would take to have people understand what that is? The app that they would have to, I guess it would be like a Federal Reserve app, and they would have to, get this digital dollar, or it could go directly to their bank. But I'm not sure how it is. I don't think it's going to go through as far as that part. We will see later today as the bill is revealed. But if it is, it would be big, because that would start to push everybody into this digital world. I mean, it is, if you think about it, money, fiat money, like paper. I mean, just look at the world around you. Like, how many people subscribe to newspapers or get magazines in the mail? Everything is digital, and it's going that way. Not in every part of the world, but we are moving towards that type of digital world. And now we still use this old, decades-old system with paper money. It just doesn't make much sense. Anyhow, I digress. So moving on with this. The definition of the digital dollar. The term digital dollar shall mean a balance expressed as a dollar value consisting of a digital ledger entries that are recorded as liabilities in the accounts of any Federal Reserve Bank, or an electronic unit of value, redeemable by an eligible financial institution as determined by the Board of Governors by their Federal Reserve System. So what's the difference between that and what they do today? Like, there's not, I mean, if you think about it, when you get your paycheck, do they give it to you in money? No, it's like a direct deposit, and it's just, numbers on a digital ledger. Now, there's nowhere in any of this language that say anything about blockchain or using a decentralized ledger. Or it just doesn't, it's just not happening. So, especially with the Federal Reserve. So, there's a digital dollar, but there's no mention of any kind of blockchain, any kind of cryptocurrency, any type of bridge currency or anything like that. So I don't know why people are so excited. Let me know in the comment section why this could be something big. But I just don't see it right now. But the question I have, of course, is if the Fed's doing all that work, why do we need commercial banks? Because the Fed, they print the money, or, well, the Treasury prints the money. The Federal Reserve makes the monetary policy. It goes to these commercial banks, Wells Fargo and Chase and all those places, and then those banks distribute the money to you. Like, we don't get money from the Federal Reserve. So I remember a video from Brad Garlinghouse, who's the CEO of Ripple, and he was asked this exact same question at the Economic Club of New York. This is a 2.5-minute snippet, and it really comes down to, why? Why would we digitalize the dollar? So let's take a listen real quick.
It's just a fundamentally different model for how it works.
I'm glad you brought up the dollar again, because I want to transition, particularly for this audience at the Economic Club of New York, China and other countries, but specifically China. China has completed a prototype, I don't know if you all know this, a prototype of a so-called China coin, a digital currency. I believe it's backed by the yuan.
It is.
And they are about to unleash their own network, similar to, what we're talking about here. Are we behind in that here in America? I mean, the Fed is a skeptic when it comes to cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
The president is a skeptic. You have a lot of people who still don't quite understand it. Singapore, which is considered a financial center of the world, very forward-thinking when it comes to technology. That central banker has expressed a little bit of concern.
Yeah. So let's first understand what stable coins are kind of central bank digital assets is kind of the way they're described. And so what the Chinese government is doing is that they are apparently going to launch a central bank digital asset. Let's go back to the thing I said about Starbucks earlier. What problem are we solving? So I look at the Fed today, and I'm sure there are bankers here in the window or in the audience. And if you want to go and call on the Fed for liquidity, you go to the Fed window, you don't get cash. You get digits in a ledger. And so when, like I'm JP Morgan and I go to the Fed's saying, okay, great, here's some sort of ledger change. It's already digitized. So I've actually been a little bit of a skeptic that central bank digital assets do much that we don't already do today.
So you don't think the dollar should be tokenized?
It already is. You think about it, like how many people here, like you look at your net worth statement on a bank account and like those are just digits. Yes, you could go to the bank and get cash, but frankly, if you're asking for any more than a few $1,000s, you have to call in advance because they don't have the cash. So most of the U.S. dollar is, quote, I mean, you said tokenized, I would say digitized. There is a little bit of a difference, but I think we always have to go back to what problem are we trying to solve. If we're solving a problem or creating customer value, then I think it's great. The only argument I have seen around central bank digital assets is if they want to expand the Fed window from serving a small number of regulated institutions to a mass audience. If everybody here could go directly to the Fed and have an account with the Fed, well, that's kind of interesting. Now we just put the entire commercial banking business out of business.
So there's your answer. And it's one of those things that I contemplate myself. I'm like, what's the point? And you can see this lady's face because they are in a room of bankers, of commercial bankers. Can you imagine someone saying that right in front of you going, hey, if this happens, you guys are out of business and there's not really much going to go on. Maybe limited business, but not what you're used to. So when we talk about this digital dollar, let me know what I'm missing. All right, moving on. The Fed pumping unlimited cash, stocks, Bitcoin react. Besides buying more treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, the central bank would also buy corporate bonds and related exchange trade funds. Essentially, the Fed was buying everything. It's printing everything. It is a one-stop shop for everything that we know, that we need, or that we think we need. This is unprecedented action by the Fed. The Fed will buy corporate bonds under a program called the Secondary Market Corporate Credit Facility. The Fed's unlimited quantitative easing, or QE, or quack economics, or money printing, whatever you want to call it, boosted stock markets, which encouraged many institutional investors to look through other assets, including Bitcoin. So the question really then becomes, all right, so the Fed is going to do an unlimited printing of money. The money that was taken out of our market was by some institutional investors, and they took money out of our market, traditional markets, and some put into gold a little bit. That's why you saw the pump in gold, but others just hoarded the cash. Now that they're like, oh, okay, now we're going to just print money, now money is starting to flow in. The question is, are these pumps that we're seeing, and it's not that big of a pump, it's a 1%, I don't really care about that, but beforehand, before this $2 trillion, we saw a nice ascension of increase in value or market cap into cryptocurrency. So right now, I don't think, honestly, that we're seeing a lot of institutional investors coming in. I think it's just people like you and me, maybe retail investors, and probably some smart money who realizes what it's going to be later on. But that's how I see it. Now, let me know if I'm wrong in the comments section, but that's how I see it right now. Institutional investors, I don't think it's a major player right now, but we will see. And lastly, this is the third reason, is China has almost beaten coronavirus, potential cured test worldwide. This is debatable. So China has reported 0 local cases for several days in a row, though the number of imported cases increases. So what's happening is China is saying, look, all the people that are here, all of our citizens, we have reported no new cases, which seems quite odd, actually. But if we have other people coming in, who are flying in from other parts of the country, from other parts of the world, like Europe, Australia, America, then yes, those people, we found that they do have the coronavirus. So the question becomes then, should we trust China? Because we know that they don't like to share data, they don't like to share information. It's a communist country, and they like to, keep everything in essentially a firewall. They don't even let the internet through. So no, we should not trust China. However, should we trust the World Health Organization, who has boots on the ground in China? And I say yes. So how many of those people are there? I have no idea. But I know that the World Health Organization is in China. They are taking reports. They are looking at the data, but the data may be skewed. However, I will say this. Subscribers to my channel have told me that they work with people in China. One had said that his partner works directly with some different banks in China, and that a lot of those people have already gone back to work. So in essence, it's a good thing that it's a good showing because they were the first ones to lock everything down. Now they're saying, okay, we've got a reduction. Let's let people go back. I don't think, but who knows? I don't think that they would let a large majority of their people back into the workforce if they haven't seen a marked decrease in the coronavirus infection rate and death rate. But again, time will tell. Another sign of hope is that the anti-malarial drug called hydroxychloroquine, which was recently touted by U.S. President Donald Trump. The drug, which has been around for 70 years, has been successfully used against COVID-19 or coronavirus in many hospitals in China, South Korea, and in France. And I need you guys to be very aware of this. This is just anecdotal evidence. This is just people who were given it and said, yeah, I feel pretty good. It wasn't a double-blind type of study. There was no scientific study done. They are looking into it, but it is not proven. And here is the big thing, and I want to burn this into everybody's memory. Many experts warn that the drug and its predecessor, chloroquine, haven't been officially approved as a COVID treatment. And however, several people got poisoned and even died of overdose by taking chloroquine after Trump's presidency. So to take a look real quick, not this one, here is it. Man dies after taking chloroquine in an attempt to prevent coronavirus. Now this was a variation, I guess, that's used to treat aquariums. But regardless, if more people take it, this is not proven to treat any type of coronavirus. So do not take that, especially with whatever medications you are on. There could be side effects and cross interactions. And of course, I don't want anybody to die from my channel. So I'm telling you, do not take that. Also, people, I've heard in the comment section, like, why don't we just give it? Let's just see what happens. And for those of you who are just, out there in the wind and think, well, science isn't that great. We don't really need science. I want to remind you of something called thalidomide. Thalidomide this was back in the 40s and 60s. I think it's the 40s? No, the 60s. Thalidomide disaster, it's a medication. It's one of the darkest episodes in the pharmaceutical research history. The drug was marketed as a mild sleeping pill, safe even for pregnant women. However, it caused thousands of babies worldwide to be born with malformed limbs. So I need you to take a look at this. This was thalidomide. This is the problem when you don't have enough scientific research and do backing with double-blind studies. And this is exactly what happened to Americans and a lot of Germans, because this was born out of a German scientist who had created this medication, apparently. So to get some background, they had come through and said, look, this is an off-label case. I think they use it for convulsions. Then they found that people got sleepy, so they said, well, this is for sleeping, to help people with sleepiness and calm their anxiety, and it's safe for pregnant women. However, at this time, this was in the 60s, clinical trials did not require FDA approval, nor were they subject to oversight. The clinical trials of thalidomide involved distributing more than 2.5 million tablets of thalidomide to approximately 20,000 patients across the nation. Approximately 3,700 women of childbearing age, at least 207 of whom were pregnant. Many than 1,000 physicians participated in these trials, but few tracked their patients after dispensing the drug. And the only reason this didn't go through is because of one person, FDA Inspector Francis Kelsey, who prevented the drug's approval within the United States despite pressure from the pharmaceutical company and FDA supervisors, plural, Kelsey felt the application for thalidomide contained incomplete and insufficient data on its safety and effectiveness. Among her concerns was a lack of data indicating whether the drug could cross the placenta, which provides nourishment to developing fetus. So essentially this happened more so in Europe, and it was halted in the US, even though we did do studies for it. So this is why all these types of studies are important and why we should be careful. So cures sound great, but the side effects could be even worse. And lastly, I will say this about the coronavirus, and I've said this many times. I know it's a very concerning right now to most people around the entire world. I personally am on lockdown here in Texas, and that's just the way it is. But I will say this. I do not see the coronavirus not being treated successfully as time goes on. You have to understand, when you have scientists and doctors doing their own thing throughout the world, some are working on cancer, some are working on longevity, some are working on different modalities for other different diseases. When you turn all them off to what they are doing and have them hyper-focus on one thing globally, the chances of this virus surviving is extremely low. I do not see how we can take the massive amount of brain power and effort globally and transform it into one piece and have it not eradicated. These are just my thoughts. So, moving on. 1.4 million XRP stolen via a fake Chrome extension. Well, that sucks, and this is why we always do or try to do the scam of the day, because people are getting screwed out of their money left and right. But just as a PSA or public service announcement, if you see an ad on a Google search for a Ledger Live Chrome extension, avoid it like the plague. According to our XR Explorer Forensics, around 1.4 million XRP has already been stolen so far, but all coins are at risk. So XRP users hit hardest by fake extension, fake Ledger Live Chrome extensions that are stealing its victims' backup phrases to get their hands on cryptocurrency. It warned that accounts are being empty. So let's take a look. I took a look at the Chrome web store and just typed in Ledger Live. So there's Ledger Live from ledger.com, Ledger Live from Ledger SAS, I don't know what that is, Ledger Wallet offered by Ledger Live Application. I have no idea what any of these are. And I wouldn't even trust any of these. So why would I do this? Why wouldn't I just go to the ledger.com website, the official website, and then just look for downloads? Or if I don't know what the hell I'm doing, I'm just going to click support and just send them an email like, look, I need this extension. Can you, how do I do this? And then they'll email you back. Or you just go to downloads, click on downloads, and here's the download link. But always go through the official website. Okay, and then whatever they, once you send your email to the official website, make sure wherever it's coming from that it's from @ledger.com or @coinbase.com, not @coinbasesuperprochina.com or whatever else it is. Make sure it's all official, and you won't get screwed over. So it's just a little advice, I think. But moving forward in the article, give some data points. But here's where it comes down to. According to further analysis, the team was able to gather that while most of the stolen XRP was still held untouched in an account, which is good, some funds had recently been sold on HIT BTC. The crypto exchange has been notified, however, it has so far failed to officially respond to the issue. I don't understand why, but really, what can they do? Can they reverse transactions? I don't think that's how it works in cryptocurrency world, unless you want to be Ethereum Classic type of thing. But that's a discussion for a whole other video, and that's not our point here. The point is, always follow best practices. This is a wake-up call to everyone in the space. With more than 4.5 billion worth of cryptocurrency was stolen in 2019. Let that sink in. 4.5 billion. So right now, the market cap of the entire cryptocurrency market is 185 billion. Imagine if, I don't know, a large percentage was being stolen out of the Federal Reserve. Do you think that wouldn't light a fire under people to get some type of safety and mechanisms in order to stop these types of scams? I think it would. But 4.5 billion, it's like, well, there it goes, it's gone. And these scammers get away with it scot-free, and they don't end up in jail. It just unnerves me. Anyhow, so what this means is, don't click on links through emails to reach your wallet or an exchange account unless it is verified and you've already sent an email and you've verified that email account. Never download a plugin unless you're 100% sure of the source, and bookmarking the official page so you can trade and transact with confidence. This is great advice. And it's such good advice for the scam of the day, I've actually put that into where is it? Scam best practices 1, 2, and 3. So hopefully, as people are looking through the scam of the day, they can read that section and not get screwed out of their money. And that is it. So let's hope we can all kind of keep our money and not get screwed by these scammers. Moving on. Federal Reserve partners to print 50 Bitcoin networks worth of USD. Networks, not Bitcoin. That's crazy. Central banks around the world are firing up their money printing machines. Collective opinion seems to be that the best way to combat the economic effects of the coronavirus is by throwing money at the problem. So, of the total 4 trillion, this is for the relief fund and what they're going to need to print. 4 trillion will come in the form of liquidity from the Federal Reserve, which is just money out of thin air. While the remaining 2 trillion will be part of the proposed Phase 3 legislation from Congress, which we just talked about in our first story. If the total assistance does reach 6 trillion, that would equal about 30% of the US GDP. That's a lot of money. So I made a price prediction a couple months ago, and I've stuck to it. I think Ethereum's going to go to 10,000. And I gave my reason why, and people said you're crazy. You're crazy because what would the market cap be? That's just insane. You can't go that high. Well, look here. Fed can just print it out of thin air, and it seems like the market cap really doesn't matter anymore, or debts or anything. World's on fire, so sky's the limit, baby. So we'll see what happens, but I still stick with that. I think Ethereum, the all-time high last time was 1,400. The next bull run, I see it at 10,000. That's just how I see it. However, core Bitcoin developer Jameson Lopp put the mass printing into some perspective. This is where he says, the United States just announced the creation of nearly 50 Bitcoins worth of dollars out of thin air. Not 50 Bitcoins, but 50 Bitcoin networks. So it's a good way to say that into perspective. That is amazing. So what does this tweet actually go to show? Well, beyond the fact that Bitcoin's hard cap supply can't be inflated, and holders will never have to suffer a mass devaluation of their Bitcoin, it also highlights just how small the Bitcoin network really is. Remember, Bitcoin is stuck at 21 million. It is capped. You cannot create more. You can't create less. 21 million, that's it. After all, if the U.S. Federal Reserve can simply print $6 trillion out of nowhere, Bitcoin's market cap of less than 120 billion is just a drop in the ocean, my friends. Just a drop in the ocean, so you have to see how far we can grow. We're at 180 some billion, and you don't think we can hit at least $1, $2, $10 trillion in the next, I don't know, 2 to 5 years? I think you're not thinking big enough, and that's just my opinion. But here's my final thoughts. And I was debating if I was even going to say this, but I have to. So I don't see that this is going to be ending well for this mass printing out of thin air. I just don't. But some subscribers say it's just fine. They say that usually economic depressions don't happen because the Federal Reserve prints money out of thin air and they can print as much as they want. So I ask you, what are your thoughts? I don't think so, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm going to ask you a question because I don't know. And I defer to the knowledge of the masses. What if Bitcoin was the world reserve? Tomorrow they come out and go, you know what, this ain't working. We have to switch over to Bitcoin. And in 6 months, Bitcoin becomes the world reserve, 21 million. And we have everybody working on it, the developers working on it, everybody's going full tilt, and they find out a way to make transactions super fast, 100,000 transactions per second, or more than Visa's 25,000 TPS. So it's all being used well. Now, what happens when this next virus hits? Let's say it's the tomato coin virus or whatever it is. The virus comes about and nobody can work, and we have to get money or some type of currency into the hands of the people. But now we can't print money out of thin air. Now we just have that 21 Bitcoin and that's it. And unfortunately, because of what happened in the last 5 to 10 years, we had whales just accumulate like crazy. We had corporations and big, huge investors scare the market and buy up all the Bitcoin. So now you see like maybe 10 million or 12 million or 15 million out of the 21 million. And I know it's going to take a while to, of course, get 21 million to actually mine it all. I think only 18.5 million has been mined so far. But let's say the vast majority is in the hands of huge corporations, huge people, whales, and it can't get in the hands of the people that need it most. What do we do then? I don't know. It's my last question for you. So leave in the comments below, and that's it for today. So look, thanks for hanging with me through the rants. I'm really appreciative that you stuck with me. If you like these types of videos, me 2 more. It's going to pop up on your left and right. And that is it for today. So stay safe, everybody. Wash your hands, gel up, isolate yourself, and I'll see you on the next one.